Well, good morning again. My name is Brockshus. I'm 19 years old and I go to UNI. And I'm going to start us out with a quick prayer. So if you'd like to pray with me, please. Heavenly Father, today we offer up all of our praise and thanksgiving to you for this day, for our family, for our friends, for this opportunity to be here with you, to worship you and to understand more about you. Today we ask that you are in our hearts as we open them to you and to your word. We pray that you fill us with the Holy Spirit so that we can learn more about you. And as we understand more about you, God, and experience more about your power and love and faithfulness, we ask that you comfort us, God, that we not be afraid of your calling towards us, and that we don't rest in our own insecurities, but we rest in your all-capability and your all-powerfulness. So in your name we pray. Amen. So I'm going to start today by sharing a little bit about my faith and how I got to be here today. As I said, I went to the University of Northern Iowa, and I'm going to be a sophomore there this fall. Going into college, I loved God, I loved his creation, and I wanted to serve him. But all of this came out of a tiny corner in my heart. The rest of my heart was dedicated to myself, being better at my academics, making more friends, gaining respect for myself. When I made the decision to go to UNI, I went because I felt God was calling me to go there. Personally, I didn't really want to go to UNI. I was kind of bitter about it, and I wasn't that excited. But by the grace of God, by the time I got there, I was quickly swept up into this great Christian community that is there. And pretty soon I made some friends who not only treasured my friendship, but also encouraged me to pursue a relationship with Jesus and pointed me towards him. And it's amazing, and I'm so thankful for that. I grew closer to Jesus in ways that I would have never imagined, and I never anticipated. Although at this time last year I desired to serve God and to serve the church, I probably would have not been able to stand up here and say that I know that Jesus is real. Because at this time last year, whenever I thought about Jesus, I kind of just avoided about it. I avoided it because I just had a lot of doubt and skepticism in my heart. Whenever I thought about him, I thought, he sounds really nice. He sounds like a great person. But he also sounds very unbelievable, so I just don't know what to think then. I mean, I would pray to him when I was told to pray to him, and I acknowledged him every once in a while, but it was very thin, very small faith. But by God's grace, as I said, he's grown in my heart in ways that I never anticipated. And in fact, when I sat down to prepare for this message, I found myself wondering what I even believed in before. And so I decided to look at this 8th grade journal of mine, a journal that I started after going to the Bible camp, Lutheran Bible camp. And it was at this camp that I first got to see what it was like to have a relationship with Jesus, and got to be with people who loved Jesus and enjoyed it and had fun. So I looked at this journal halfway expecting to see just vague prayers to a vague God, not really anything specific to Jesus. But I was surprised to find at the end, at the end of the first entry, I had scribbled this little prayer, and it was to Jesus. And it said along the lines of, Jesus, I don't really know who you are, and I don't know much about you, but if you could please be in my heart, so I can learn more about you. I would love that. So I was surprised when I read that. I was surprised that I had asked Jesus about that and had forgotten about it, and that I had never really thought about it after that time. And I was surprised because it's a prayer that is still being answered today. And I tell you about this not just so you know more about my faith, but so you know about Jesus' faithfulness to us. When I first heard that I got the opportunity to speak today, I was overjoyed because As I've learned more about Jesus and grown more in my faith, I've come to understand more about how my faith has been shaped and the people who have shaped it. And you, as my home congregation, who have been with me since I was a little girl, you've worked in my heart in significant ways. And so it's my prayer that you understand how thankful I am. I'm going to get emotional. I didn't expect to get emotional right here. Anyway, so it's my prayer that you see how you've worked in my life and how you've worked in each other's lives. So, before we dive into the scripture again today, I want to share one thing that has helped me this past year, and that is that the Bible must always be taken, must always be approached with the intentions of understanding more about Jesus and who Jesus is. Although it relates to us and reveals our role as Christians, it's impossible to fully grasp that without first understanding who and what Jesus is and what he's done for us. Okay. So, let's move on to the lesson for today. Keep that in mind. I believe that Jesus is calling me today to talk to you about God's omnipotence. God is all-powerful and all-knowing, and in this passage, it's teeming with evidence of that. The storm itself is a great testament of the power of God's creation. If you can imagine, they're in the middle of the Sea of Galilee, tossed about by giant waves, with winds around them so strong that they can't even move forward. This reminds me of a Psalm 148, verse 8, which says, "Praise the Lord from the earth, you great sea creatures, and all ocean depths. Lightning and hail, snow and clouds, stormy winds that do his bidding." Think of what a violent storm is capable of. Even that vicious storm is bowing to God and praising God because it is a product of his creation. And not only is God existing in this storm, he is also present outside of it because God is bigger than this storm. We know this because it says in verse 32, "And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down." I don't view that as a coincidence. I believe it was by God's hand that the wind died and the boat continued forward. This omnipotence is repeated when we find Jesus to not only have followed the disciples out that far into the middle of this awful storm, but to do it without a boat. Even more, he did it by walking on top of these vicious, violent, mighty waves. Once again, God is existing in this storm, and God is also existing outside of this storm. Because God himself is the only one who created the gravity that normally keeps us from walking on water, that normally pulls us into the water. Because God created that, he is also the only person who can suspend that law, and he's the only person who can walk on top of the law. Because walking on water wasn't enough to curb the disciples' unbelief and fear, Jesus continues to manifest himself by saying, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." In the cross-references of my Bible, I found that "it is I" is literally translated to mean "I am." Jesus wasn't just introducing himself, he was inviting the disciples to take comfort in who he was, the Son of God. By saying this, Jesus is echoing the verse in Exodus where God is revealing himself to Moses. His words are, "I am who I am." As the creator of the universe, of all things, God knows all things and is sovereign over all things. He is the ultimate source of reality, the Alpha and the Omega. He has been here since the beginning and he will be here until the end. In this verse, he is saying, "I created reality. Therefore, I am bigger than reality." It's unfathomable and really hard for us to grasp. So how do we have comfort in that? Let's look at the popular psalm, "Be still and know that I am God." This psalm is used frequently as comfort to Christians, but I want to dig a little deeper into that to understand why it can be so comforting to us. I came across an article about this verse, and in it was listed 3 suggestions or 3 steps that we need to take in order to actually take time and rest in God's power. The first step is that we have to admit that we are not God. And it's hard. It's hard to give up control of things that we want to have control of, to trust that God is bigger, to understand that there is no way we will ever be capable of accomplishing everything we want to accomplish. Only God can do that. We have to understand that we are not working for ourselves, but for the glory of God. The second step is that we need to be still. And that's hard too. How many times do you sit still and think, I'm being useless, I need to start doing something? We won't sit still because we are used to having to work for our reward. We are often misled by the lie that our goodness is related to how hard we work. Sometimes this turns into a cover though. It turns to an escape from God. In order to be still, we need to stop and turn to God. His grace is sufficient enough for us, and better than any other reward we can earn. The final step is to know, and this is crucial. I'm going to emphasize today that faith is more than just a feeling. Faith is knowing. You know it not only with your heart, but with your whole being. So with that in mind, we move back to the story of Jesus walking on water. The most important message you can attain from this is that Jesus is omnipotent. The entire purpose of this miracle was so that Jesus could reveal himself as the Son of God. In verse 33, we find those in the boat worshiping Jesus, not because he could walk on water, not just because he could walk on water, and they thought it was really cool, but because of the miracle, they were now certain that Jesus was the Son of God. This is the only time in Matthew Jesus is referred to as such. And in fact, this story in the other Gospels, it only mentions Jesus walking on water. It doesn't mention the miracle of Peter walking on water. And I believe that's because that's the miracle we need to fix our eyes on, that Jesus is capable of all things. So we know this, but we think to ourselves, that's really great for Jesus, but what does it mean for us? God blesses us a little bit more by letting us have the insight into Peter, a guy like all of us, a sinner who sought Jesus, but got scared. Because isn't that what faith is? It's scary. Let me give you a small example of this in my life. The other day I went boating with my family, and I went wakeboarding, which is like water skiing with kind of a surfboard. And after a few tries, I finally got up and I looked around me and I noticed I was gliding on water, and I thought, this is easy. This is like walking on water. And then I thought, if wakeboarding was around when Jesus was around, I wonder if his miracle would have been all that great. It was a silly thought, really, but anyway. Soon after that thought, my muscles started to wear out and I got tired, and it got harder and harder to hold on to the boat. I was driving through bigger and bigger waves, and pretty soon I was losing my balance and I fell down. And then I thought to myself, I'm really weak. But then my reaction to that was, I better hit the gym. I'm not in shape enough. I haven't been doing enough things to make myself fit for this. But that's not what Jesus is suggesting in this passage. Jesus didn't reach out his hand, grab Peter and say, you need to hit the gym. He didn't say, you aren't making yourself fit for this. You aren't strong enough to walk on water like I am. Instead, Jesus said, why did you doubt? He said, why were you not certain that this miracle was within my power? Why did you not trust that I am all powerful? Jesus is capable of it all, and that's what we need to know. The other day I was having a chat with my friend, and she told me, I don't think faith and confidence are the same thing. The more I thought about it, the more my heart broke for her. Faith without confidence is just a dream. It's just a nice thought. It's a hope. And hope is beautiful. But hope without faith doesn't exist. Just like faith doesn't exist without confidence. Although faith is bigger than confidence, faith doesn't exist without confidence. And I don't mean confidence in ourselves and our power. I mean confidence in Jesus and his capabilities, because they're greater than ours. So, my friend went on to say, I have faith right now that I am saved, but I don't know what I'll do tomorrow. I may turn my back on Jesus tomorrow. Yes, I thought that is true, but Jesus won't turn his back on you. If we fix our eyes on Jesus today, he holds tomorrow in his hand. His hand. And you know why? Because we have faith. Not just hope. We have faith that Jesus has and can overcome everything. We have this faith because we know, because it says here in the Bible that Jesus is walking on water. We have this faith because we know, because it says here in the Bible, that Jesus died for our sins. It is finished. Anyway, I know this is true because I read it and I see it with my head and I feel it with my heart. I know Jesus doesn't turn his back on us because even when I've lost sight in the past, even when I forgot who Jesus is and what he's done for me, because of that day when I wrote in my 8th grade journal, asking Jesus to be in my heart, he rejoiced and said, that's all I've ever wanted to do, and I will never stop. I have an even more powerful personal example of this. It occurred this last semester when I was at Basic, which is an on-campus late-night worship service at UNI. The day leading up to Basic, I was stressed and worried about future events that I thought I would probably fail at, and I was afraid of people involved in those events and what they might think of me. And specifically that day, I was learning this temporary ink art called henna, and we were learning it for a special Basic service next week, the following week, and I was learning how to draw like Bible stories on my hand. So I drew one, and I got done, and it was kind of ugly, and it was, just really ugly. But I was like, this is cool, it's still cool, it's a story. But I went to show my friends, and they're like, yeah, that is ugly, and they just laughed at it. And I know it's ridiculous, but it was kind of my breaking point. It was kind of the point where I was like, why is this happening? Like, I don't deserve all of this, is what I said. I don't deserve this. I deserve more because I'm trying to spread God's word. So I got bitter. And all through Basic, that worship service, I grew more and more bitter and more angry as I realized that I was failing to worship and love God, and instead focusing on my bitterness and how undeserving of these things that I was. And then something dangerous happened because I started thinking about my biology class that I was taking that semester, and that biology class was, it just talked a lot about Christianity as a joke. It was really just a disproven fact, something that doesn't exist because science says it doesn't exist. So I started thinking about this, and that doubt grew in my heart, and it grew and grew and grew. And part of me was scared by my doubt and not wanting to doubt anymore, but the other part of me followed my doubt. And I fell deeper and deeper into this doubt and this sorrow. I longed with my heart to sing along to the songs and feel the love, but in my brokenness, I chose instead to finally tell myself, I don't believe in God. And at that very moment, I thought that in my head, a new song came on, in the worship service, and the singer belted out, "There is no power in heaven or hell that can keep me from the grace of my Father on his throne." Then even more clearly her voice rang, "O death, where is your sting? O grave, where is your victory? He's alive, he is risen." If you can imagine, I had been crying before that. But at this point I sobbed. I was bawling endlessly and I was weeping. I was in the front row of the worship service and I tried to stop because I was embarrassed. And I think I was bobbing up and down, but I was embarrassed. And instead the sobs grew and they grew and grew. And I just wanted to cry and sing and listen to this beautiful singer sing these words of truth, sing these words of victory. Pretty soon the song ended. And I continued to sob. And my boyfriend Cole was with me. And usually we stick around and talk to people, but instead he asked me if I wanted to leave, and I said yeah. So we exited out of the nearest door, and we went outside, and we found a rock. And I sat on that rock, and I just sobbed. And it was really noisy. And, but I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to stop sobbing, and I didn't want to leave that moment because I knew that God was real. And I was so filled with the Holy Spirit, even though I was so undeserving. I was so filled with the Holy Spirit, I couldn't feel anything between my shoulders and my waist. I was filled with something so beautiful and painless, something that was pure bliss. And as that was growing in me, I had to sob, because all the pain in this life was leaving me in these noisy, messy, runny sobs. And for the first time, I prayed out loud in front of Cole. I prayed that it would never leave. I prayed that it would never end. That I would never stop loving and serving God. I didn't want to stand up and walk away from that moment. I didn't want to go to school. I wanted to serve Him. And I remember feeling so happy and comforted that every pain and fear I had seemed foolish. And I prayed that if God wasn't going to take me now, that He would never leave me and always help me serve Him. If I could have died right there, I would have accepted it with happiness and relief. But God isn't done with my life. So what are you afraid of? I'm here, I'm living, it's beautiful and it's a blessing, but it's hard. The feeling I had that night, I can't just get again with the snap of a finger. And it's scary to depend on something I can't always feel, to depend on something I can't see, to depend on Jesus. So what are you afraid of? I'm afraid of a lot of things. I'm afraid of my grades, my degree, my future career, my future family. I'm afraid of what my friends think of me. I'm afraid of not loving them enough, of not loving my family enough. I'm afraid of getting in a car accident, of getting caught speeding. I'm afraid of eating unhealthy or not looking good enough, and I'm afraid to be wrong or to misspeak. I'm afraid of a lot of things. And in this life we endure hard things, but we don't need to endure them without joy. We don't need to endure them without fear. Fear not is a popular phrase in the Bible. I've never counted, but I heard once that it's in there 365 times. There are 365 days in the year. It's a daily reminder that we should fear not. In Luke chapter 12, it says, "Instead seek His kingdom, and these things will be added to you. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." Seek His kingdom. Have faith. Know that God has covered it, and He will provide. Fear not doesn't mean that we don't do anything. It means that with everything we do, we seek Jesus and acknowledge Him. Peter exemplifies this when he calls out to Jesus. At that point, the boat was stuck in the storm. The disciples had done everything they could do, but they were still going to be stuck. So Peter saw Jesus and saw Him as the only person who could save him. Jesus walked on water. Peter walked on water. And then Peter doubted, and Peter failed. Peter saw what was scary, and he sank. He took his eyes off of Jesus. Peter turned his back. As a result, he sank. And I know we have all seen these waves in our lives. And we've all sank at the sight of those waves. So, this story illustrates so clearly that life is scary. It doesn't illustrate that Peter was an awful sinner unlike us and didn't deserve a miracle. It doesn't illustrate that there are waves in life that will defeat us. It doesn't illustrate that there are ever going to be any waves in life. Instead, this story is that there will come a time when you face fear. But through it all, always exists a Father who loves you. And that's powerful. God is omnipotent, God sees all, knows all, and God loves. Jesus demonstrates his love by seeking the disciples when they were stuck in a storm. Jesus demonstrates his love when he goes to Peter and reaches out his hand. He saves Peter not because of Peter's performance, but because he loves him. And that's such a big relief. I know Jesus' love because he sought me when I was in the middle of a storm. How have you known it? How has God given you confidence to be where you are now and where you are going? What has been revealed through your faith in him? Are we functioning? Is your faith for your own glory? Faith should be for the glory of God. It's so that Jesus, the Son of God, may be revealed through us. As members of faith, are we seeking Jesus above all? Are we functioning for his glory? Do we know that God is all-powerful? Because he's awesome. Look around you. Look at this church, this building, and think of the waves that have drowned you. And then think of the hand that has pulled you from them. Look at the people around you and see them as the gifts of God that they are. See the hope, see the truth, see the power, and see the love. And have confidence in it. I'm going to pray once more. Jesus, I thank you so much for being present in our hearts today. And I pray that as we understand more about you, that we can have confidence in you. And that we can know that you are greater than us and you are greater than what we know. And I just pray that you can help us as we go out to be disciples and to make disciples, that we can teach this power, and we can teach of this love, and that you can continue to work through us. In your name we pray. Amen.